There's a certain kind of man the world overlooks. He doesn't chase the noise. He doesn't fill his evenings with bars, crowds, or constant company. While others measure life by movement and applause, he finds meaning in stillness, in the quiet hum of his own space. He is not lonely, though others may think so. He is not hiding, though the world might assume he is. He simply loves staying at home. But what does that really mean? What kind of psychology exists behind a man who feels more alive within his walls than beyond them? Society calls it introversion, maybe isolation. Some even mistake it for fear or failure. Yet beneath this calm exterior lies something deeper, a rebellion against the noise of modern existence, a return to self, a silent understanding that peace does not require witnesses. We live in an era that worships motion. People who go out, connect, and broadcast their lives are celebrated as living fully. Those who stay in are often labeled withdrawn, antisocial, or emotionally cold. But perhaps the opposite is true. Perhaps the man who stays home has learned something most have forgotten, that comfort with one's own company is not weakness, but wisdom. The home, for him, is not just a place. It is a psychological landscape. Every corner reflects his inner world, the order he creates, the chaos he controls, the small rituals that anchor his day. The way he brews coffee, arranges his desk, lets the light fall across his books. These are not random acts. They are manifestations of his mind, his need for control, harmony, and quiet purpose. There's also a kind of safety here, not from the world itself, but from the endless performance it demands. Outside, he feels the pull to conform, to impress, to entertain. Inside, he can simply exist. His thoughts can wander without interruption. His identity no longer needs to compete. This essay isn't about loneliness or fear of the outside world. It's about self-knowledge. It's about understanding why a man might choose the quiet path, not because he is escaping, but because he's arriving. So let's ask a simple question that reveals something profound. What if the man who loves staying at home isn't retreating from life, but finally living it on his own terms? To understand the psychology of a man who loves staying at home, we must first step into the silence that surrounds him. It is not an ordinary silence, not the kind born from absence, but from presence. It is the sound of a mind that has learned to rest within itself. He wakes to the stillness of morning, the faint echo of a kettle boiling, the first shaft of light cutting across the floor, the scent of something familiar. To others, this may seem like monotony, but to him, it's the rhythm of peace. His home is a living mirror of his psyche, a sanctuary where his thoughts are not judged, and his energy is not drained by social noise. 1. The hidden energy economy. Psychologically, introverted men experience energy differently. The world outside, loud conversations, crowded rooms, constant engagement, doesn't fuel them. It drains them. Every small interaction costs a piece of mental currency. Home becomes the place where that currency is restored. Carl Jung, who first popularized the concept of introversion and extroversion, suggested that introverts turn their libido inward. Their life force, instead of seeking stimulation from external chaos, finds nourishment in internal reflection. This doesn't mean they hate people. It means they draw strength from solitude, from the deep well of inner dialogue. A man who loves staying home is not antisocial. He's selective. He understands that not all connections are nourishing. He prefers depth over breadth, meaning over motion. While society glorifies the man who moves constantly, chasing deals, parties, and approval, the quiet man moves within. His progress is invisible, but profound. 2. The sanctuary of control. In his home, he is sovereign. Every object has meaning. Every corner is a decision. The world outside often feels unpredictable, messy, and performative. Inside, he builds order, not out of obsession, but out of necessity. Control for him is not about power. It's about grounding. When life outside feels chaotic, his surroundings become an anchor. Psychologists call this environmental mastery. the ability to shape one's surroundings to match one's emotional needs. It's a subtle but powerful form of emotional regulation. His tidy desk, his routine, his chosen music, they form a system that regulates his inner weather. To an outsider, it may look like habit or even withdrawal, but in truth, it's therapy. The home is a self-designed world where he can restore equilibrium. 3. The myth of the lonely man. The label lonely is often misused. To be alone is not the same as to be lonely. The lonely man feels absence. The solitary man feels presence. A man who loves staying home experiences solitude as abundance. He doesn't need the noise of others to validate his existence. Instead, he finds dialogue in silence. His thoughts, his music, his books, his routines, they all speak to him in quiet harmony. There's a depth to this that modern life rarely allows. When a man spends time alone, he meets himself. He confronts his fears, his memories, his desires. That confrontation can be uncomfortable, which is why most people avoid it. They drown it out with distractions. But he doesn't. He faces it. And in doing so, he becomes whole. 4. The rebellion against noise. We live in an age that confuses activity with meaning. Social media, constant communication, and relentless motion have made silence feel suspicious. When someone says, "I just want to stay home," people often hear, "Something's wrong." But maybe something's right. Maybe that man is quietly rebelling against the expectation that life must be loud to be valid. In his stillness, he reclaims something sacred: attention. He pays attention to details others overlook: the sound of rain, the shifting of light through the blinds, the way the air feels different at dawn than at dusk. This sensitivity is not fragility. It's awareness. And awareness is intelligence in its purest form. Philosopher Søren Kierkegaard once said, "The crowd is untruth." The man who stays home lives by that insight, not out of cynicism, but clarity. He knows that truth is rarely found in collective noise. It's found in the quiet space between thoughts. 5. The emotional architecture of home is not merely a structure. It's an extension of the self. Every man who loves staying at home has, consciously or unconsciously, built a psychological architecture around comfort, familiarity, and meaning. The living room becomes a reflection of his mental state, organized but not sterile, personal but private. The bedroom becomes a temple of retreat, a place to dream, to rest, to re-enter the world. The kitchen, a reminder of nourishment, both physical and emotional. Even the smallest details, like the chair he always sits in or the mug he uses every morning, become symbols of identity. Psychologists refer to this as territoriality, a natural human need to mark and personalize one's space. For the man who loves staying at home, this territory is sacred. It's not about possession. It's about belonging. The home is the one place where he does not have to perform. 6. The masculine paradox. Strength in stillness. Society often tells men to be conquerors, to go out, fight, and claim. But the man who stays home has discovered another kind of strength: restraint. His masculinity is not measured by dominance, but by discipline. He doesn't need to prove himself through noise. He proves it through control, of emotion, of time, of attention. There's a quiet heroism in that. To choose peace in a world addicted to chaos is an act of courage. Many men who love staying at home carry a deep awareness of their emotional landscapes. They've learned that emotional maturity isn't about suppression, but regulation. They know how to sit with sadness without drowning in it, how to enjoy solitude without losing touch, how to build stability without applause. 7. The healing of the inner world. Often this preference for solitude is born from experience, not avoidance. Some men have been hurt by the external world. Rejection, betrayal, exhaustion. The home becomes their way of healing, a quiet cocoon where wounds can close in peace. In psychological terms, this can be seen as self-soothing. Rather than seeking constant reassurance from others, the man turns inward. He learns to comfort himself, to create safety without dependence. Over time, this self-reliance transforms into serenity. His solitude becomes a garden, not a prison, and in that garden, growth happens. Slow, invisible, but real. 8. The inner dialogue. Inside those quiet walls, there's a constant conversation. It's not loneliness, it's introspection. He thinks deeply about things others glance over. He replays memories, analyzes choices, dreams quietly of futures he doesn't announce. This inward focus is not narcissism, it's consciousness. When you strip away the distractions of society, constant updates, meaningless interactions, endless motion, you are left with yourself. Most people don't know what to do with that, but he does. He listens to himself. He confronts his contradictions. He refines his philosophy of living. That's why his calm can sometimes feel intimidating to others. People who are not at peace with themselves often project discomfort onto those who are. 9. A different kind of freedom. There is a quiet irony in the life of a man who loves staying at home. He is often perceived as trapped, yet he is freer than most. He has escaped the invisible prison of validation. The modern world runs on performance, the need to be seen, liked, and approved. The homebody man doesn't play that game. He measures his days by peace, not praise. He values time over attention. He knows that freedom is not about where you go. It's about how you feel when you get there. In his space, he is both the observer and the observed. He has nothing to prove, no one to impress, no crowd to perform for. Freedom for him is a quiet morning where he can hear his own thoughts. 10. The myth of wasted time. Many fear stillness because they equate it with stagnation. But to the man who loves staying home, stillness is fertile. It's where creativity and clarity grow. Writers, philosophers, scientists. Many of history's most brilliant minds found their revelations in solitude. Nietzsche, Thoreau, Newton, all men who understood that insight comes not from noise, but from quiet observation. When he sits alone, the man is not wasting time. He's digesting it. He's processing the world, filtering out the meaningless, extracting truth from experience. This internal processing is a core component of what psychologists call deep work, the ability to focus without distraction on meaningful tasks. The man at home might look still, but his mind is alive. 11. The balance between comfort and avoidance. Yet, there's a fine line. Solitude can heal, but it can also isolate. Comfort can restore, but it can also numb. The man who loves staying home must stay aware of this tension. When solitude becomes avoidance, peace turns into stagnation. The key lies in intention. Does he stay home to connect with himself, or to hide from the world? Healthy solitude is active. It's mindful. It nurtures creativity, reflection, and rest. Unhealthy solitude is passive. It feeds avoidance, fear, and disconnection. The psychology of this man, then, is not static. It's a living dance between engagement and retreat, between the outer and inner world. 12. The home as a mirror of self. Over time, his home becomes an autobiography, written not in words, but in choices. The colors he picks, the books he keeps, the objects he refuses to throw away. Each tells a story. His home is not an escape from life, but a reflection of how he chooses to live it. It's where he thinks, heals, creates, and recharges. It's where his truest self feels safe enough to exist without performance. And perhaps that's the essence of his psychology. He doesn't need the world to tell him who he is. He already knows. The man who loves staying at home is not a mystery. He is a mirror. A reflection of what happens when a human being chooses to slow down in a culture that cannot stop moving. He stands at the edge of modern society like a still figure watching a river rush by, calm, deliberate, aware that the current, though powerful, often leads nowhere. His psychology reveals more about the world than about himself. Because to understand why he stays home, we must first understand what he is staying away from. 1. A culture addicted to distraction. We live in an age that fears stillness. Every empty moment must be filled. Every silence must be broken. Every pause is treated like a problem to be solved. In that environment, the man who enjoys solitude becomes an anomaly. He's not resisting people, he's resisting pressure. Psychologists call this the stimulation paradox. The more stimulation society offers, the less tolerance people develop for quiet. The man who stays home, however, has reclaimed that tolerance. He has rewired his mind to feel alive without the constant buzz of validation. He doesn't crave the quick dopamine hit of attention or approval. Instead, he finds satisfaction in subtler rewards, focus, peace, and depth. This makes him in a way more free than those who seem busy living, because he's no longer enslaved by the rhythm of the crowd. 2. The depth of self-containment. There is a psychological concept known as self-containment, the ability to derive emotional stability and satisfaction from one's own inner life rather than external reinforcement. For most people, the self is like an open window, constantly influenced by the weather of other people's moods and opinions. For him, the self is a house with sturdy walls and open light. The world may storm outside, but he remains centered. Self-containment is rare because it requires emotional discipline. It demands comfort with silence, patience with solitude, and a strong inner narrative. The man who loves staying at home is not empty. He is full. Full of thoughts, ideas, reflections, questions. His inner world is textured, layered, endlessly alive. That is why he doesn't depend on endless motion to feel alive. His life moves inward. 3. The fear of still men. Yet society often reacts uneasily to such men. Why? Because stillness threatens the illusion of progress. When people see someone who refuses to run with the herd, they begin to question their own direction. His calm becomes a quiet accusation, not through words, but through contrast. He doesn't flaunt wealth, status, or validation. He doesn't need to prove how busy or important he is, and that, in a world built on showing, is radical. There's a subtle strength in a man who doesn't chase attention. His detachment unsettles people who mistake noise for value. He doesn't play the social game because he has already seen through it. This can make him misunderstood, labeled distant, strange, even cold. But those labels are merely society's defense mechanisms against what it doesn't understand. A man at peace with himself. 4. The philosophy of solitude. Solitude to him is not an escape from life, it's an entry into it. Philosophers like Nietzsche, Pascal, and Emerson all warned that humanity loses itself in distraction. Blaise Pascal once wrote, "All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone." The man who loves staying home has solved that problem. He can sit quietly, he can think, he can simply be. This ability is not trivial. It's the foundation of self-awareness. When you can spend time alone without discomfort, it means you've befriended your mind. You've faced its shadows, its noise, its endless questioning, and you've made peace with it. In a way, he represents a modern monk, not cloistered in religion but devoted to the spiritual discipline of presence. 5. Solitude as strength. In psychology, strength is often associated with resilience, the ability to recover from chaos. The man who loves staying at home has learned resilience by mastering rest. His stability comes from restoration, not resistance. He doesn't fight the world. He recharges apart from it. He teaches something profound without saying a word. Peace is not something you find outside. It's something you build inside. That's why his silence is not absence, it's construction. Every moment of solitude is another brick in the architecture of his mental fortitude. 6. Masculinity reimagined. This kind of man also challenges traditional images of masculinity. The world often expects men to be visible, assertive, loud, constantly producing and performing. But there's a growing realization that quiet masculinity, rooted in reflection and emotional intelligence, is no less powerful. He doesn't roar, he radiates. He doesn't dominate, he steadies. His home becomes his dojo, not of combat, but of composure. He learns patience, empathy, self-awareness. These qualities, once dismissed as weakness, now emerge as the foundation of modern strength. This redefinition of masculinity is psychological evolution, the shift from proving one's worth to knowing it. 7. The dual edge of comfort. Still, there's a cautionary side to this serenity. The comfort of solitude can become seductive. Too much safety can stunt growth. The same walls that protect him can, over time, begin to confine him. That is the paradox. The home that nurtures him can also limit him if he forgets to engage with life beyond it. Because even the deepest thinker needs movement, experience, and connection to stay alive inside. Healthy solitude is balance, a rhythm of withdrawal and return. The man who loves staying home must remember that the inner world thrives best when it occasionally meets the outer one. 8. What he represents. Ultimately, the man who loves staying at home is not just a person, he's a symbol. He represents the human capacity for introspection in an age of distraction. He stands for the courage to step out of the current, to choose meaning over motion. He reminds us that silence is not a void but a vessel, one that holds clarity, purpose, and truth. When we look at him, we're not just seeing a man who enjoys his own space. We're seeing the archetype of self-awareness, a quiet counterpoint to the chaos of collective living. He is a message in human form, that being alone can be an act of connection to the self, to peace, to authenticity. In the end, the man who loves staying at home is not avoiding life, he's redefining it. He has discovered what many spend years searching for in others, a sense of inner companionship. He does not depend on the chaos of the world to feel alive. He has built his own ecosystem of peace, a place where time slows down and meaning deepens. He doesn't fear silence, he listens to it. He doesn't chase company, he cherishes authenticity. He doesn't measure worth by visibility, he measures it by alignment. In his quiet world, he has learned that happiness is not a spectacle, it's a state of harmony. We often think of strength as noise, the ability to dominate, to win, to shout louder than the crowd. But there's another kind of strength, quieter, deeper, invisible. The strength to be content with simplicity, the courage to walk away from what drains the soul, the wisdom to know that solitude is not punishment, but privilege. His home is not a retreat from reality, it is the stage where he lives most truthfully. The walls around him do not confine him. They protect the sacred dialogue between his thoughts and his spirit. And through that dialogue, he becomes something the world rarely produces anymore. A whole man. A man at peace with his choices. A man unafraid of stillness. A man who doesn't need an audience to exist. Psychologically, he reminds us that balance is not found in constant motion, but in the ability to pause. The brain, like the heart, needs rhythm, contraction and release, noise and silence. Without stillness, even joy becomes noise. Without reflection, even success feels hollow. Perhaps the man who loves staying home is not behind. He's ahead. He's living the future the rest of us are too distracted to imagine. A future where presence replaces performance, where being replaces doing. So, the next time you see a man who chooses to stay in, who prefers his books, his rituals, his silence, don't mistake it for weakness. It might be strength in its purest form, the kind that doesn't need applause. Maybe he's not hiding from the world. Maybe he's simply building one within himself. One that no noise can disturb and no chaos can steal. And in a time when everyone is running, he stands still. And somehow, that makes him the only one truly moving.